Hey ladies, welcome back. If you're new to this channel, welcome. On here I go by the name of Tracy, where we talk about all things godly femininity. As you can see from the title, we're going to discuss the topic of preparation for those who desire to get married. I'm not married yet, I'm still single, but I can share with you ladies, if you're single, what I've learned thus far in my gift of singleness. Let's get started. A lot of us women want to be married, but we don't give much thought into becoming a better woman, becoming a better daughter, becoming a better friend, becoming a better co-worker. We don't give much thought into becoming. A lot of us think it's just about getting married because of age maturity, but not spiritual maturity. Or we see that someone is well off in their career, in their education, and they're financially stable, mature in all those areas, but that's not all. Marriage is a spiritual thing. What I've learned so far in my singleness, that I'm currently single, is about my inner spirit. My inner spirit makes me beautiful as a godly feminine woman. Before, I used to think it's how I physically appear that makes me a wife, or if I'm attractive. But as I grown and matured in my faith, what it is your inner spirit as a woman of God. That's what makes you beautiful and to be picked as a wife. As a recent discussion that I've seen, even here on YouTube, is a lot of us women look at the companionship or the fairy tale wedding. And that's because we as women are more likely to drift to romance. And we see the propaganda of romance pushed out to us in movies, novels, and just all types of media. And not to say that romance is bad. Romance is a beautiful thing, and God did create it, but it's not reality. And it depends on the type of person you're with, because some people need to learn romance. They're not romantic people. So it's just to be real in our expectations for those of us who desire to be married in our relationships. Having realistic expectations. A lot of us women want that knight in shining armor to be whisked away and carried away, but it's not reality. So far, while I'm still single, I believe I've learned a lot during this time, and what I believe God has been disciplining me on, if it's His will for me to be married, is communication, which has been a hard one. Yeah, I believe communication has been one thing I've been convicted of recently, and that is better communication with my family, with being honest with how I feel to them, making things clear. And also another thing I've learned about my family is that we're not good communicators. And I've watched a series of couples and talking about their preparation and how the family backgrounds that they came from, how they weren't the best communicators, and how they kind of had to learn that through their marriage. In this day and age, I think part of the reason is because of hustle culture. Everyone wants to be on their phones. All these reasons. And now that I'm seeing this, if it's God's will for me to have a family, I wouldn't want that. I want us to communicate better, be more open with each other. and asking about the well-being of each other. So I'm trying to get into doing that now. But that's one thing that I've noticed in trying to have better communication with my family. Oh, another thing too, another reason is everyone's glued to the TV. Everybody's glued to their phones. Everybody is job to job, hustle culture, that we don't really take the time to sit down and form relationships with one another and care for the well-being of others. That's what I've been noticing lately, and that's what I've been seeing in this preparation. Like in the future, if I were to have a family, I would want us to communicate better. So this is what I've been learning so far in my singleness, and I've been convicted on. Another thing is loving my neighbor as myself. This has been a hard one for me. And loving my neighbor as myself, I didn't really understand it until now. This means loving somebody the same measure which you love yourself. And I believe I've been tested on this, the times where I stayed at home to serve my relatives, dropping my routine and whatever I want to do to serve them. For example, I can give you in the mornings I usually do my morning routines. And there will be a need from one of my relatives. And loving my neighbor as myself, me taking the time to pamper myself in the morning, is dropping that to attend to them before finishing what I'm doing. Attending to them, serving them, and what they need before I get to myself. And then when the time is appropriate, to go back to what I needed to do, if I'm making that clear. But that's so far what I'm understanding of loving my neighbor as myself. The same measure I love myself to love others. It's kind of like denying yourself. Like denying yourself is in there. But this has been a hard one for me. That God has been training me to be selfless, transforming me from my selfishness to be selfless. Because when you have a family, and when you think of the Proverbs 31 woman, when she serves her family, and you read about all that she did in Proverbs 31, is loving her neighbor as herself. She needs wisdom on how to attend to her family. She has to adapt her schedule to meet the needs of her family. This is all what I'm learning. And going through all this, it's not about perfection, but using your gift of singleness to glorify God in preparation for those who want to be married, who desire to be married, if it is the will of God for you to be married. But it's not about perfection. There's more room for growth in a marriage. You're also growing in marriage as well. I also believe God provided me the resources to know about femininity, godly femininity, the roles of men and women. Me working with kids who were difficult, along with my coworkers, to give me a glimpse of what a marriage might look like. Because really what a marriage is just your relationship with another person. That's all that it is. Also, the times where I was at home, serving my family, my relatives, it also gave me a glimpse of how homemaking might look like. And when I tell you, it was not easy. Homemaking, it's not glamorous, and it's not to be romanticized. Because when I tell you the thoughts that ran through my mind at times where I would serve my family and how you would feel, it's really humbling. Plus plus their personalities as well. It's a very humbling experience. And I think the reason why at times that happened is because I don't remember that God is with me in it, doing it along with God, remembering that I get to do this with God. But I got to see the reality of what homemaking might look like. All this time I've been begging God if it's His will for me to stay at home. And now I got to see a glimpse of how it might be. It's not easy to be a biblical homemaker. I don't know how you all biblical homemakers do it. I commend you, and it's greatly appreciated, the work that you do, because I don't know how you do it. Obviously, if you're a biblical homemaker, it's by the grace of God. But when I tell you the thoughts that ran through my head at times, the times I was humbled while serving my family at home, the times where I did stay at home, it was humbling. And it was a lot of work. There are times where I didn't want to do the dishes or feed my relatives who needed to be fed, given food. Yeah, it's not easy. And I was also in that mix of romanticizing it, homemaking. But it is work. I have to remember that. And those of you who desire it, you have to remember that it is work. You definitely have to develop into a godly woman and wife. What I would advise, as I'm still single, is to enjoy and be content in your gift of singleness for the glory of God, which this is a hard one for me. But be grateful for the opportunities that you can do while you're still single, while glorifying God in it. In the preparation, if it's God's will for you to be married. This is a time where you can get to know yourself more and become a better person, a better woman. So don't rush it. The more years of maturity, the more years of growth, the easier that it is, if it's God's will for you to get married, to transition into marriage. The more growth, the more maturity, the easier the transition into marriage. Yeah, so the more years, the more growth. But depending on what you do in those years, which is using your singleness for the glory of God, as long as you make God at the center, then the easier it will be to transition, and the more growth and more maturity. So don't rush it. I know this is a hard one for me, but don't rush it. We have to trust that God wants the best and knows the best for us. There were times where certain situations that didn't go how I wanted it to go, or I didn't expect it to go. With the few, I can nearly name the few men that I talk to on fingers on one hand. But looking back on those times, it's like God knows what I'm looking for in a man. He knows the gifts that he's given me, my interests, and who will align closely to that, to the gifts that God has given me, and will be most suitable. Anyway, the wife's supposed to be suitable and the helper to the husband. But I have to trust that God knows all those things and knows what's best. Because even at the back of my mind, I would feel that I don't think this person is aligned to where I believe God wants me to go. It'll be at the back of my mind. Like God knows what's best. Even when situations that they didn't go how I expected it, how I expected it to go. Or didn't go as expected. Let me rephrase it that way. Marriage is not about just getting married, staying married, finding love, companionship. These are all temporary reasons and motivations, because the test of those vows will come, the trials will come, the day-to-day mundane will be there. There will be seasons and times where we'll be discontent if it's God's will for us to be married. All those because it's just of our sinful nature, where at times we just become discontent or not content. And there has to be a stronger reason than just pleasure, companionship, finding love, or just staying or getting married. And that foundation has to be for the glory of God. That you're fully satisfied in God, and you get to see more of God through the gifts because He's the source. Honoring God in all the decisions that you make, because in the end result is getting Him. But yeah, the foundation has to be to glorify God in all the decisions that we make, because you love God. That's what will get you through the testing of those vows and trials, and when we face seasons of not being content. That's why God has to be the center of your life now. Not saying making God the center so you can get marriage or get things, but whether you're married or single, or it's the will of God for you to be single or married, it's the same thing I said before with the decisions that we make to glorify God in them because of our love for God, because we're fully satisfied in Him. Another thing I've noticed too within my ethnic community is I see a lot of couples just, when the marriage can be so much more, they just stick through it. And in some cases, abuse. Because even in my ethnic community, divorce is like a taboo. But because of the lack of spiritual maturity and not keeping God at the center of your life, the marriage could be so much more when it isn't. When there's supposed to be love, joy, and duty in a marriage for the glory of God. That's why all these things matter. Keeping God at the center of your life now. Well, I think that's it for this video. Just wanted to share what I've learned thus far while I'm still currently single, and to hear from you ladies as well in the comments how your season of singleness has been and how it has been being single, and just to help us see the reality for those who desire to be married, how important preparation and spiritual maturity is. Yes, we need to see the practical too, like being financially stable, being financially stable as a woman is another issue to discuss later on. Because I can talk on it briefly, but what I believe is, as I'm single right now, I'm working because I'm single, but I'm not thinking about it as I have to provide for my family, because that is the man's job, the man who desires to be married job. Well, role. I don't want to say job, but role that God has given him to provide and lead his family. Providing for your family is like leading the family. So I believe us as women shouldn't worry too much about that, because that isn't our role for those of us women who want to be married, and if it is the will of God for us to be married. But yeah, you can get into the practical, but we need to see the spiritual maturity and becoming godly women, godly wives, if it is God's will for us to be married. But yeah, I don't believe for us as women should focus so much on, being financially stable and going to this school or for the provision of our family, because it's not our role to lead. We should focus on becoming godly wives for those who desire to be married. That's what I believe our main focus should be in becoming, not doing, because it is a man's role, the man who desires to be married's role to lead. But yeah, I just wanted to expand on that. And yeah, that's pretty much it for this video. Be sure to comment down below, and see you in the next video. Bye. I am a woman of God, in my nature, in my thoughts. I am a woman of God, a quiet and gentle spirit.